So here's the thing about the Galactic Council. They loved feeling superior. And for 3 years, 4 months, and 16 days, they had the perfect excuse to feel that way because they were all collectively stumped by a shiny metal box. Not just any box, mind you. This was the Archon cipher, an ancient artifact left behind by some long-dead super-advanced civilization that apparently had nothing better to do than leave cosmic riddles lying around the universe like the world's worst scavenger hunt. The artifact was covered in symbols that hurt to look at, numbers that didn't follow any known mathematical system, and patterns that made quantum physicists weep into their periodic tables. The prize for solving it? Faster-than-light technology that actually worked in real time, not the current garbage that took 40 years to charge up and made you age backwards on Tuesdays. We're talking actual zip across the galaxy in time for dinner technology. So naturally, every species in the Council threw their best and brightest at it. The Xanthari brought their quantum supercomputers that could calculate pi to the last digit, which apparently was a thing they were proud of. The collective consciousness of Hive Prime assigned 3 million drones to work on it simultaneously. Even the floating brain guys from Sector 9, who literally thought in 12 dimensions and were insufferable about it at parties, gave it a shot. All of them failed. Which brings us to Ambassador Krell, a 7-foot-tall reptilian with scales that shimmered purple when he was feeling smug, which was always. He stood before the council chambers, addressing the gathered delegates with all the warmth of a tax audit. Perhaps, he hissed, his forked tongue tasting the air like he was sampling fine wine. We should face the obvious truth. Some civilizations are simply not equipped for problems of this magnitude. Perhaps some species should focus on their strengths. Like, I don't know, agriculture or primitive music. He wasn't looking at anyone in particular, but everyone knew he meant the humans. Earth had just been granted Provisional Council membership, and Krell had voted against it. Twice. He'd actually asked for a recount. The human delegation, all 3 of them, sat quietly in the back. They'd been quiet for 3 years, watching, waiting, probably eating those weird packed lunches they always brought because they claimed the council cafeteria food gave them digestive concerns, which no one wanted to hear about. But now, apparently, Earth had something to say. They'd sent word ahead. They had a candidate, someone who could solve the Archon cipher. Krell's scales shimmered so bright he practically glowed. This was going to be entertaining. The doors to the council chamber opened with that dramatic whoosh sound that cost taxpayers 17 million credits to install, and in walked Earth's champion. Jake Morrison looked like he'd dressed himself in the dark after a 3-day weekend. Jeans with a questionable stain near the knee. A t-shirt that read, "I paused my game to be here." Sneakers that had seen better decades. He had the posture of a man who'd never met a chiropractor and the expression of someone who'd just woken up from a nap he didn't want to take. He was chewing gum. The council chamber fell silent. Not the impressed kind of silent. The did someone make a horrible mistake kind of silent. Behind Jake, Dr. Finn Rothko walked in, looking like a man attending his own funeral. Rothko was actually qualified, with 16 PhDs and a Nobel Prize he kept in his bathroom because he claimed it made guests uncomfortable in a funny way. He was wearing a suit that cost more than a small spacecraft, and an expression that suggested he was reconsidering every decision that led to this exact moment. "Council members," Rothko began, his voice tight. "May I present Jake Morrison, Earth's selected candidate for the Archon Cipher Challenge." Krell's laugh echoed through the chamber. It sounded like a garbage disposal choking on silverware. This is your expert? What are his qualifications? Did he stay at a Holiday Inn last night?" Jake stopped chewing for a second. "Actually, yeah. The one near the spaceport. Decent breakfast buffet. You guys got one of those here?" "I was told there'd be food." Rothko closed his eyes. Somewhere deep in his soul, something died. "Mr. Morrison," Krell slithered forward, "runs an escape room business in Nevada. His educational background includes, and I quote from his file, some college. He lists his special skills as Tetris and knowing all the words to Bohemian Rhapsody." "Hey, the whole song," Jake corrected. "Even the opera part. That's actually pretty hard." A delegate from the methane cluster made a sound like a deflating balloon, which was their species' equivalent of a confused scream. Rothko stepped forward, sweating despite the climate-controlled environment. "The council requested Earth send someone who solves puzzles professionally. Mr. Morrison has successfully designed over 200 escape room scenarios with a 92% satisfaction rating on Yelp." 93, Jake added. "We got a new review yesterday. Lady said my alien abduction room was very realistic. Little did she know, right?" He gestured around the chamber full of actual aliens. Krell's scales had gone from purple to a deep crimson, which meant he was either angry or aroused, and no one wanted to know which. This is an insult to the Council. Earth sends us a dropout who plays children's games for a living? Technically, I also do birthday parties, Jake said. Booked solid through Thursday, actually. So can we speed this up? I've got a group of 9-year-olds expecting a pirate theme and I still need to hide the treasure. Rothko looked like he was calculating how fast he could reach the airlock. The Council Overseer, a floating crystalline entity named Mora who'd been respecting, silent until now, pulsed with light. The human has been properly submitted as a candidate. The rules are clear. He may attempt the cipher. Krell made a sound like an angry tea kettle. Fine. Let the primitive embarrass his entire species. It will be educational, for him. Jake cracked his knuckles. Cool. So where's this puzzle thing? And seriously, someone point me to the snacks. The Archon cipher sat in the center of the testing chamber on a pedestal that probably cost more than Jake's entire business. It was about the size of a microwave, covered in symbols that seemed to shift when you weren't looking directly at them, and it hummed with a frequency that made your teeth itch. Around it, the galaxy's finest had set up what looked like a very expensive science fair. The Zenthari had their quantum computer array, all blinking lights and displays showing numbers that would make a calculator have an existential crisis. The Hive Prime Collective had 17 of their drones linked together, vibrating in perfect unison like the world's creepiest choir. The Dimension Brain guys floated in their containment spheres, pulsing with colors that didn't technically exist in normal space. Jake grabbed a chair, spun it around backwards, and sat down with a bag of chips he'd apparently smuggled in. So what? You guys just stare at it until it does something? Krell gestured dramatically at the setup. These are the most advanced analytical systems in the known galaxy. They have processed every possible mathematical permutation, every linguistic pattern, every quantum probability matrix. We have tried everything. Have you tried asking it nicely? Jake chomped on a chip. Rothko pinched the bridge of his nose. Mr. Morrison, please. These beings have dedicated years to this problem. Yeah, and how's that working out? A Zenthari operator, whose name was basically a mathematical equation, activated their latest attempt. The quantum computers lit up like a rave. Energy cascaded across the artifact's surface. Symbols rearranged themselves in patterns that hurt to perceive. The computers processed data at speeds that would make light feel slow. Nothing happened. The artifact just sat there, humming its annoying hum. Fascinating, breathed one of the brain creatures. We have now eliminated another 47 trillion possible solutions. Only 823 trillion left to go, another brain added cheerfully. Jake raised his hand like he was in middle school. Question. Are you guys sure it's actually a math thing? Maybe it's like a knock-knock joke situation. Every head, tendril, and sensory organ in the room turned to stare at him. A what? Krell's voice could have frozen helium. You know, like sometimes the answer isn't complicated. Sometimes you're just overthinking it. Jake ate another chip. Had this group once in my zombie escape room. Spent 40 minutes trying to pick a lock with advanced techniques they learned on YouTube. Lock wasn't even locked, just pushed open. The Archon were the most advanced civilization in galactic history, Krell said slowly, like explaining to a child why you can't eat crayons. They would not leave behind a simple puzzle. If you say so. Jake shrugged. Krell's scales went full supernova purple. Fine. Fine. Since the human thinks we are all fools, perhaps he would like to observe true genius at work. He gestured to his own species' setup, a crystalline computer array that looked like it cost more than a small planet. The Krellick's computational matrix. We have been refining our approach for months. Exciting, Jake said with the enthusiasm of someone waiting for paint to dry. Krell personally activated the sequence. The crystals blazed with light. Energy patterns danced across the artifact in increasingly complex formations. Mathematical proofs that would make Pythagoras weep scrolled across holographic displays. The Krellick's matrix was throwing everything it had at the puzzle. The artifact responded by humming slightly louder, which was probably its version of a shrug. Krell stood there, scales flickering through colors like a confused mood ring. His jaw worked silently. In the background, someone's translation device rendered his internal thoughts as a string of symbols that definitely weren't family-friendly. Jake tilted his head, looking at the artifact from his sideways position on the chair. Huh. Weird. What's weird? Rothko asked, desperate for anything that might salvage this disaster. Those symbols. They kind of look like this tattoo my ex-girlfriend got in college. Terrible decision. She got it upside down because the artist was reading the reference photo wrong. Had to tell everyone it was abstract art. Jake went back to his chips. Fascinating cultural anecdote, Krell said with enough sarcasm to kill a small ecosystem. Truly, Earth's greatest mind at work. But Jake wasn't listening anymore. He'd gone quiet, staring at the artifact with his head cocked at an angle that looked painful. And for the first time since arriving, he'd stopped chewing his gum. Jake had been sitting upside down in his chair for about 10 minutes, feet hooked over the backrest, head dangling toward the floor like a kid who'd been told to sit properly exactly once, and decided to do the opposite. Rothko had stopped asking him to sit normally. At this point, dignity was a distant memory anyway. "You good down there?" Rothko asked. "Blood rush helps me think," Jake said, his face turning red. "Also, I can see that coffee stain on the ceiling. You guys know about that? Feels like a hazard." Krell was pacing now, scales cycling through colors like a broken traffic light. Perhaps we should simply admit defeat. Clearly, the Archon intended for this puzzle to remain unsolved, a test of humility for lesser species who dare to reach beyond their grasp. Or, Jake said, dropping his feet and spinning upright so fast it should have made him dizzy. "You could just turn it upside down." The chamber went silent again. But this time it was someone just said something potentially stupid or potentially brilliant and no one can tell which kind of silent. "Excuse me?" Mora's crystalline form pulsed. Jake stood up, brushed chip crumbs off his jeans, and walked over to the pedestal like he was approaching a vending machine. "The puzzle. It's upside down. You're all reading it wrong." Krell's laugh could have stripped paint. "The artifact has been analyzed by every species in the Council. Quantum mapping shows the symbols align with the base structure. There is no upside down in four-dimensional space, you absolute buffoon." "Yeah, but what if the Archon thought in 3 dimensions like normal people?" Jake reached for the artifact. 17 security drones activated simultaneously. Rothko jumped forward. "Wait, you can't just touch it without proper..." Jake picked up the artifact, turned it 180 degrees, and set it back down. For exactly 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then the artifact lit up like someone had just entered the correct password after years of typing gibberish. Symbols rearranged themselves with audible clicks. The humming changed from annoying to almost musical. Panels slid open, revealing crystalline data cores that began projecting holographic schematics of faster-than-light drive systems that made every physicist in the room forget how to breathe. The artifact basically said, "Finally, thank you," in the universal language of solved puzzles. Chaos erupted. The Xanthari operators started yelling at their computers, which were now confirming that yes, turning it upside down was in fact the solution, and also they felt very stupid. The Hive Prime drones broke formation and started bumping into each other like confused Roomba vacuums. One of the Dimension Brain guys actually flickered out of existence for a second, possibly from sheer embarrassment. Krell stood frozen, his mouth open wide enough to park a 6-tent. "Shuttle in." Mora pulsed so bright everyone had to look away. "Explain. Now." Jake shrugged. The symbols weren't math, they were instructions. But they were written for beings who oriented themselves differently in space. Probably a species that lived on ceiling surfaces or hung upside down or whatever. To them, this was right side up. To everyone else in the galaxy who evolved standing upright, it was backwards. He paused. Also, there was a tiny arrow on the bottom pointing up. Well, it was pointing up when it was upside down. You know what I mean. Rothko walked over on shaking legs and peered at where Jake was pointing. There was indeed a small arrow etched into the base. He'd walked past this artifact for 3 years and never once looked at the bottom. "But," one of the Xanthari stammered, "our quantum analysis, our mathematical models, were all really complicated ways of not checking if you were holding it wrong," Jake finished. "It's cool. Happens all the time in my escape rooms. Smart people overthink stuff. Had a group of engineers spend 2 hours trying to hack an electronic lock. It was unplugged. The key was under the doormat." Krell finally found his voice. It came out like a deflating balloon. "This cannot be. 3 years. 3 years. The greatest minds in the galaxy." "Yeah, that was probably the problem," Jake said. "You were all too smart. The Archon clearly weren't testing intelligence. They were testing perspective, literally. Like, can you see things from a different angle? It's pretty clever, actually. Respect to those ancient weirdos." He grabbed his chip bag off the chair. "So, we good here? Because seriously, I've got that birthday party on Thursday, and the deposit was non-refundable." Mora's crystalline structure pulsed in what might have been laughter, or a minor system crash. "The human has solved the Archon cipher. By the laws of the Council, Earth is granted full access to the faster-than-light technology." Somewhere in the Council, back, a delegate started crying. Jake was pretty sure it was one of the brain guys, which raised questions about how that even worked. Krell's scales had gone completely gray. He looked like a statue of disappointment. "Any questions?" Jake asked, genuinely trying to be helpful. 17 species started shouting at once. It took approximately 4 hours for the council to stop yelling, crying, and questioning their entire existence. The Zenthari had unplugged their quantum computers and were just staring at the wall. The Hive Prime Collective had somehow managed to give 17 drones a simultaneous migraine, which their species didn't even think was biologically possible. One of the Dimension Brain guys had requested therapy. Mora called for order by pulsing so bright that everyone's retinas filed a formal complaint. "The council must acknowledge what has occurred here today," the overseer announced. "The Archon cipher was not a test of computational power or advanced mathematics. It was a test of cognitive flexibility, the ability to perceive problems from perspectives beyond one's own evolutionary bias. They trolled us," muttered a Zenthari operator. "An ancient civilization trolled the entire galaxy for 3 years. Basically, yeah," Jake agreed. He'd found the cafeteria and returned with what looked like a sandwich but probably wasn't. He was eating it anyway. Krell had been silent for 20 minutes, which was a personal record. His scales had settled on a muddy brown color that suggested he was experiencing all 5 stages of grief simultaneously. When he finally spoke, his voice had the quality of someone reading their own eulogy. "So we were defeated by simplicity, by the most obvious solution, by a human who did not even want to be here." He looked at Jake. "You did not solve this through intelligence." "Nope," Jake said cheerfully through a mouthful of alien sandwich. "Solved it by being too dumb to think it was complicated. Sometimes that's better." Rothko had progressed from embarrassed to a weird kind of proud, like a parent watching their kid win a spelling bee by misspelling a word so badly it looped back around to being right. "The gift of human perspective is that we haven't been spacefaring long enough to develop your advanced problem-solving frameworks. We still think simple first." "You still think wrong first," Krell corrected bitterly. "But apparently that is useful." A delegate from the Silicon Confederacy, who'd been quiet this whole time, raised a metallic appendage. "This raises a concerning question. How many other unsolved mysteries might have similarly simple solutions that we've overlooked due to our advanced cognitive processes?" The chamber went quiet as that particular horror sank in. "Oh no," whispered a Zenthari. "We might be too smart," said another. "I'm going to lie down," announced one of the brain creatures, and its containment sphere just floated out of the room. Jake had somehow become the center of attention, which he clearly hated. News drones from 70 different planets were hovering around him. Galactic media outlets were already running headlines like, "Local idiot solves impossible puzzle and humanity's secret weapon stupidity." "Mr. Morrison," Mora pulsed gently, "you have done your species a great service. Earth will be granted full council privileges, access to our technology archives, and a seat on the Advanced Problems Committee." "Cool, cool," Jake said. "Can someone else do that, though? I really do have a business to run." "You could stay," Rothko suggested weakly. "Consult on other challenges. The council clearly needs your unique perspective." Jake looked around at the gathered aliens, the advanced technology, the crystalline structures and floating brains and quantum computers. Then he looked at his phone, which somehow still got service in space, and checked his calendar. "Yeah, I'm gonna pass. No offense, but you guys seem exhausting. Plus Jenny. Already bought the pirate costumes for Thursday and she'll kill me if I cancel." Krell made a sound like a dying engine. "He solved the greatest mystery in the galaxy and wants to return to children's parties. It's a living." Jake shrugged. "Better snacks too. Your cafeteria food tastes like sadness." "It is designed to be nutritionally optimal for 17 different species," Mora said defensively. "Yeah, that's the problem." Rothko stepped forward, sensing his window of escape closing. "If the council has no further need of us, I believe Earth's delegation should depart. We've taken enough of your time." "You've taken 3 years of our dignity," Krell muttered, but waved a clawed hand dismissively. "Go. Leave. Take your Chaos Merchant with you." Jake gave a little wave to the assembled council. "Thanks for the trip. It was weird. You guys should really work on your people skills, though. Very tense energy in here." As they headed for the door, Mora pulsed one final time. "Mr. Morrison, the galaxy owes you a debt." Jake paused at the doorway. For a moment, just a moment, something that might have been actual wisdom crossed his face. "You don't owe me anything. You just learned what every escape room teaches. Sometimes the answer isn't hidden in the complexity. Sometimes it's sitting right in front of you and you're just looking at it wrong." Then he ruined it by adding, "Also, your bathroom soap dispensers are mounted way too high. I had to jump. Design flaw." And he was gone. The news hit Earth approximately 4 hours before Jake's shuttle landed, which meant he touched down to what could only be described as controlled chaos, wearing a news camera. His escape room business, Morrison's Mystery Rooms, had gone from a modest operation in a strip mall between a tax preparation service and a vape shop to the most famous address on the planet. There were news vans parked on the street. Reporters camped out by the door. Someone had already started selling T-shirts with his face on them that read, "Think backwards, move forward." Jake hated every second of it. "I just wanted the free space trip," he told Rothko as their shuttle descended toward the landing pad. "They said all expenses paid, meals included, and a tour of the council station. That was it. That was the whole reason I said yes." Rothko was staring out the window at the mob below. "You solved a 3-year-old puzzle that stumped the galaxy's greatest minds, and you did it for the buffet." The buffet was terrible, for the record. Very disappointed. Jake slouched in his seat. Is it too late to say someone else did it? Approximately 4 billion people watched the live feed, so yes, much too late. The shuttle landed and Jake seriously considered just staying inside forever. But Jenny, his business partner and the only person who actually knew how to run the escape rooms, was waiting at the bottom of the ramp with her arms crossed and an expression that suggested he was in trouble. "You've been gone for 6 days, she said as he descended. 6 days, Jake. I've been running this place solo while you were off playing space tourist. Do you know how many calls we've gotten? I'm sorry. I'll make it up to you. 4,000. 4,000 booking requests, corporate team building events, schools. The governor wants to bring his entire staff. Someone from Hollywood called about movie rights." She thrust a tablet at him. "We're booked solid for the next 18 months, and I haven't even answered half the emails." Jake stared at the screen. The numbers kept going up in real time. "Oh no. Oh yes." Jenny's expression shifted from annoyed to terrifying smile. "We're expanding. I already found 3 new locations. We're hiring 20 people. You're doing interviews next week. But I don't want— Too late. You're famous now. The idiot who saved humanity. That's literally what they're calling you on the news." She paused. "It's actually great branding." Back at the council station, things were somehow worse. Krell sat in his private chambers, scales still that defeated muddy brown, watching the news feeds from Earth. Jake Morrison's face was everywhere. Clips of him turning the artifact upside down played on loop. Analysis programs were dedicating entire episodes to "The Morrison Method. Is overthinking the enemy of progress?" His communicator chimed. It was the Krellix High Command. "Ambassador Krell." His superior's voice dripped with disappointment. "We've received word from the Council. Earth has been granted full membership and assigned a new designation." Krell's scales flickered with hope. "They're rejecting them? Finally seeing reason?" "No. Earth has been designated as the Council's official alternative perspective consultants. For problems that traditional analysis cannot solve, humans will be called in to provide, and I'm reading this directly from the Council decree, unconventional cognitive approaches." The color drained from Krell's scales entirely. "You cannot be serious." "The Council is sending a request to Earth for a delegation of 50 additional consultants. They want more, and I'm quoting again, people like Morrison." Krell made a sound like a garbage disposal eating a kazoo. 50 of them. 50 humans with no respect for proper analysis. 50 chaos merchants who will just, what, turn things upside down and call it genius? The Council seems to believe that human cognitive development, being significantly less advanced, provides a unique advantage in lateral thinking scenarios. They're calling them stupid in a fancy way. Yes, and apparently that's valuable now. His superior paused. "Also, you're being assigned as their liaison. If Krell had blood pressure, it would have reached escape velocity." "What?" "The Council feels you need exposure to alternative thinking methods. Consider it a learning opportunity." The communication ended. Krell sat in silence, contemplating every decision that led to this moment. He'd spent 300 years rising through the diplomatic ranks. 300 years of study, dedication, and intellectual achievement. And now he was going to be babysitting humans who solved galaxy-spanning mysteries by tilting their heads. His communicator chimed again. A message from Earth's Council delegation. "Hey Krell, it's Rothko. Sending over the profiles of the 50 consultants Earth is providing. Fair warning. One of them is Jake's cousin who runs a food truck and solved a Rubik's Cube once while drunk. Another is a retired crossing guard who does Sudoku. The rest are, frankly, not much better. Looking forward to working together. Try not to have an aneurysm." Krell's scales cycled through every color his species could produce, including two that weren't supposed to be possible. Back on Earth, Jake had finally escaped the media circus and made it to his apartment. He collapsed on his couch, grabbed a beer from his fridge, and turned on the TV just in time to catch a news anchor discussing the new age of human galactic influence. His phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Mr. Morrison, this is the Galactic Council Advanced Problems Committee. We have 17 unsolved challenges we'd like your input on. Full compensation, travel expenses included, and we've been informed you have concerns about our catering. We're prepared to negotiate. Please respond at your earliest convenience." Jake deleted the message. His phone buzzed again immediately. Another unknown number. "Jake, it's Mora. Please. The Zenthari found another artifact and they're afraid to touch it. We need you." Delete. Buzz. "Morrison, this is Ambassador Krell. I am contractually obligated to invite you to consult on a dimensional stability problem. I want you to know I hate this. Please decline so I can report your refusal." Jake thought about it for a long moment. Then he typed, "What's the catering situation?" The response was immediate. "I will personally ensure adequate snacks." Jake smiled, took a long drink of his beer, and typed back, "Can't. Got a birthday party Thursday. Pirate-themed. Non-refundable deposit." He blocked the number. Outside his window, humanity's newest council transport was being constructed in orbit, gleaming and expensive and ready to carry Earth's consultants to the stars. 50 people who thought simple first. 50 people who'd probably solve impossible problems by accident while looking for the bathroom. The galaxy wasn't ready. But then again, neither was Jake, and that seemed to be working out fine. He grabbed his laptop and started designing a new escape room. Space-themed, naturally. The final puzzle would require people to look at something upside down. Because if there was one thing Jake Morrison had learned from his galactic adventure, it was that sometimes the best solutions came from people who didn't know they weren't supposed to be simple. Also, alien food really did taste like sadness, and that was a hill he was willing to die on. His phone buzzed one more time. "Jenny. Stop ignoring the council. They're offering us franchise opportunities on 6 different planets. We're taking the meeting." Jake sighed, closed his laptop, and wondered if it was too late to fake his own death. Probably. The galaxy was watching now, and somewhere on the council station, Krell poured himself whatever his species considered alcohol and contemplated a universe where humans were considered problem-solving consultants. It was going to be a long century, but hey, at least the artifact worked now. Turned out all they needed was someone dumb enough to turn it upside down.